The International Center for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property is an intergovernmental organization dedicated to the preservation of cultural heritage worldwide through training, information, research, cooperation and advocacy programs. It aims to enhance the field of conservation restoration and raise awareness to the importance and fragility of cultural heritage. The creation of the center took place as a result of a proposal at the UNESCO General Conference held in New Delhi in 1956. 3 years later, the center was established in Rome, Italy, where its headquarters remain to this day. ICCROM responds to the needs of its member states, which are currently at 133. Mission. ICCROM's mission is defined by a set of statutes that were drafted shortly before its establishment. Article 1. Purpose and functions. The International Center for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property, hereinafter called ICCROM, shall contribute to the worldwide conservation and restoration of cultural property by initiating, developing, promoting and facilitating conditions for such conservation and restoration. ICCROM shall exercise, in particular, the following functions: collect, study and circulate information concerned with scientific, technical and ethical issues relating to the conservation and restoration of cultural property. Coordinate, stimulate or institute research in this domain by means, in particular, of assignments entrusted to bodies or experts, international meetings, publications and the exchange of specialists. Give advice and make recommendations on general or specific questions relating to the conservation and restoration of cultural property. Promote, develop and provide training relating to the conservation and restoration of cultural property and raise the standards and practice of conservation and restoration work. Encourage initiatives that create a better understanding of the conservation and restoration of cultural property. Activities. ICCROM's mission is fulfilled through 5 areas of activity: training, information, research, cooperation and advocacy. Training. ICCROM contributes to capacity building through the development of educational materials, training activities worldwide, internships and fellows. Since 1965, ICCROM has offered courses to mid-career professionals on a wide range of topics that include archaeological site conservation, architectural records and inventories, built heritage conservation, conservation decision-making, cultural heritage management, preventive conservation in museums and risk management to endangered collections. Other courses are focused on specific materials such as stone, wood, or sound and image collections, and others still focus on the conservation of heritage in specific regional areas, such as the Arab region or Southeast Asia. Information. The ICCROM Library is one of the world's leading sources of information on the conservation and restoration of cultural heritage. It contains more than 100,000 registered references and 1,800 specialized journals in more than 60 languages. In addition, the archive contains institutional records that date back to ICCROM's creation, as well as over 200,000 images of cultural heritage worldwide in relation to ICCROM's scientific and educational activities. The website is a portal to comprehensive information about courses, activities, international events, and employment and training opportunities in the conservation field. Research. ICCROM facilitates a vast network of conservation professionals and institutions through which it organizes and coordinates meetings to devise common approaches and methodologies. It also promotes the definition of internationally agreed ethics, criteria and technical standards for conservation practice. The in-house laboratory is also a reference point and resource for professionals, course participants, interns and fellows of the organization. Cooperation. ICCROM carries out all of its activities in collaboration with a vast number of institutional and professional partners. Additionally, it serves its member states in the form of collaborative projects, training, and technical advice. Through its Technical Assistance Service, ICCROM provides educational materials and conservation literature to professionals working in countries with limited finances and supplies, free of charge. Advocacy: ICCROM disseminates teaching materials and organizes workshops and conferences to raise public awareness and support for conservation. History: the end of the Second World War came with the need to repair monuments and other forms of cultural heritage that had been either damaged or destroyed. At the same time, other countries were emerging from colonization and were eager to industrialize, reclaim and redefine their cultural identity, and train personnel to preserve their heritage. On an international level, there was a lack of cohesive training and authoritative bodies to guide countries in rebuilding and protecting their heritage. Thus, during the sixth session of the UNESCO General Conference, the Swiss government introduced a resolution that proposed the establishment of an international center to encourage the study and awareness of methods of conservation on a global scale. This was adopted and a committee of experts were put together to decide upon the role and functions of this institution. In the center's 10-year anniversary commemorative booklet, Hiroshi Daifuku of the Section for the Development of the Cultural Heritage explained, Mr. Georges-Henri Rivière was appointed chairman of a subcommittee of the International Committee for Monuments of UNESCO for the creation of the center. The members of this committee, when discussing the proposed functions of the center, considered that such a body could, for example, treat major problems involved in conservation, such as lighting, call upon a wide range of specialists from different countries, provide information to countries which lack laboratories, treat problems concerned with the preservation of monuments, coordinate research, and having a stronger moral authority eventually prevent badly trained conservators from undertaking restoration of important works of art. Pages 12-13. These functions would become the template for the center's statutes. In 1956, the resolution was adopted at the 9th session of the UNESCO General Conference in New Delhi, and in 1957, an agreement was signed between the government of the Italian Republic and UNESCO to establish this center in Rome. The adhesion of 5 member states by 1958 allowed the statutes to come into force, making the center a legal entity. Collaboration was established with other European conservation institutions, namely the Central Institute of Restoration of Italy and the Royal Institute for Restoration of Works of Art in Belgium. A provisional council nominated by UNESCO was created to govern the center, and in 1959, it opened in Rome with Harold J. Plenderleith, renowned keeper at the British Museum, as its director. The Belgian art historian Paul Philippot was appointed deputy director, and the first General Assembly took place in 1960, during which the first regular council members were elected. Timeline below is a timeline of key events in the center's development. 1956 UNESCO General Conference decides to establish a conservation body. 1957 Agreement is signed between UNESCO and Italy to establish the center in Rome. Austria becomes the first member state. 1958 5 member states adhere, making the center a legal entity. 1959 The Rome Center becomes operational with Plenderleith as its first director. 1960 The first General Assembly is held. 1961 The library is launched and becomes a leading source of conservation literature. 1964 The center is involved in the drafting of the Venice Charter as well as salvaging the monuments of the Nile Valley, including the temples of Abba Simbel. 1965 The first course on architectural conservation is held. 1966 ICCROM coordinates the first international response to floods in Florence and Venice. 1968, the first course on the conservation of mural paintings is held. 1971, Paul Philippot becomes director and changes the name from Rome Center to International Center for Conservation. 1972, UNESCO acknowledges the center as an advisory body of the World Heritage Convention. 1973, the first course on conservation science is held. 1975, the first course on preventive conservation in museums is held. 1976, the first course on stone conservation in Venice is held. Recovery work is done in the wake of the earthquake in Friuli, Italy. 1977, Bernard M. Fielden is appointed director, changes the center's name to ICCROM. 1981, Turkish archaeologist Sevat Erder becomes director. 1982, the Technical Assistance Program is launched, initially providing minor equipment and supplies, didactic material, conservation literature, annual subscriptions to conservation periodicals and photocopies to public institutions and non-profit organizations. 1985, regional programs were launched with the PRIMA program, a long-term incentive to train sub-Saharan African professionals in preventive conservation. 1986, ICCROM wins the Aga Khan Award for Architecture for the conservation of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. 1988, Polish architect Andrzej Tomaszewski is appointed director. First course on wood conservation is held in Trondheim, Norway. 1991, the Media Save Art campaign begins. Its objective is to raise awareness among schoolchildren regarding the fragility of cultural heritage. 1992, Mark Lannon, Belgian museum director and art historian, becomes Director General. 1993, the NAMEC program for conservation training in Maghreb countries begins. ICCROM's statutory functions are revised to include advocacy. 1994, ICCROM goes online. The PREMO program for conservation in the Pacific is launched. The NARA document on authenticity is drafted in Japan. 1995, the Integrated Territorial and Urban Conservation Project begins. 1996, the first PAT is held at the archaeological site Chan Chan in Trujillo, Peru. 1997, the Dr. Harold J. Plenderleith Laboratory is inaugurated at ICCROM. 1998, the Africa 2009 program is launched, offering training courses on the conservation of immovable heritage in sub-Saharan Africa. An agreement is also signed between ICCROM and the National University of Benin, creating EPA. 1999, the first conservation of Urushi course takes place. 2000, Riga Charter adopted at Riga in Latvia on 23 and 24 October 2000 at the Regional Conference on Authenticity and Historical Reconstruction in Relationship to Cultural Heritage. Initiated by ICCROM. 2000, British archaeologist and conservation educator, Nicholas Stanley Price becomes Director General. The Programme for Museum Development begins operating in Mombasa, Kenya. 2002, the Internship and Fellows Programme is established. The first Sharing Conservation Decisions course is held. 2003, ICCROM begins holding biennial fora in Rome. The first was on living religious heritage. The first course on architectural records, inventories, and information systems for conservation begins. 2004, the ATHAR and Calasia 2010 takes place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The first course on the conservation of built heritage takes place in Rome. It is an evolution of the ARC course. 2008, the LATAM program for conservation in Latin America and the Caribbean is launched. 2009, the Africa 2009 program concludes. ICCROM celebrates 50 years of operations. 2010, the Calasia 2010 program concludes. Malaysia provided capacity building in the Asia-Pacific region for the conservation of movable heritage and taught the importance of integrating communities of intangible heritage into the conservation process. 2011 Stefano De Caro, an Italian archaeologist, is elected Director General of ICCROM. 2012 A new program for disaster risk management is launched. 2013 The ICCROM Forum on Conservation Science is held in October 2013, bringing together conservation professionals from around the world to discuss the relevance of conservation science to the greater global agenda. Organizational structure. ICCROM's governance consists of the General Assembly, the Council and the Secretariat. General Assembly. The General Assembly is composed of delegates from all of the ICCROM member states who convene in Rome every 2 years to dictate the organization's policies, approve the program of activities and budget, and elect the Council and Director General. The General Assembly also approves reports on Council and Secretariat activities, determine member state contribution, and adopt and revise ICCROM's statutes and regulations, when necessary. Council members of ICCROM's Council are elected from among the most qualified experts in the conservation restoration field worldwide. In choosing members of Council, equitable representations from all of the cultural regions of the world, as well as relevant fields of specialization, are taken into account. The Council meets annually at the ICCROM headquarters in Rome. Secretariat. The Secretariat of ICCROM consists of the Director General and staff. The Director General is responsible for the execution of the approved program of activities. Staff are distributed between sectors dealing with the movable heritage, communication, the didactic laboratory, the library and archives, and finance and administration. Member states: Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Andorra, Angola, Argentina, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Barbados, Belgium, Benin, Bolivia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Botswana, Brazil, Brunei Darussalam, Bulgaria, Burkina Faso, Cambodia, Cameroon, Canada, Chad, Chile, China, Colombia, Republic of the Congo, Côte d'Ivoire, Croatia, Cuba, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Egypt, Estonia, Ethiopia, Finland, France, Gabon, Gambia, Georgia, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Guatemala, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, India, Iran, Iraq, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Japan, Jordan, Kenya, Kuwait, Latvia, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Lebanon, Lesotho, Libyan Arab Jamahiriya, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Malaysia, Maldives, Mali, Malta, Mauritania, Mauritius, Mexico, Monaco, Mongolia, Montenegro, Morocco, Mozambique, Myanmar, Namibia, Nepal, Netherlands, New Zealand, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Norway, Oman, Pakistan, Paraguay, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Qatar, Republic of Korea, Romania, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Serbia, Seychelles, Slovakia, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sri Lanka, Sudan, Swaziland. The 25th of October 2007, Sweden, Switzerland, Syrian Arab Republic, Thailand, the Republic of Macedonia, Togo, Trinidad and Tobago, Tunisia, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, United Republic of Tanzania, United States of America, Uruguay, Venezuela, Vietnam, Yemen, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Directors General: Harold J. Plendileith, Paul Philippot, Sir Bernard M. Fielden, Servitor de Andrei Tomaszewski, Mark Lannon 1992–2000, Nicholas Stanley Price, Munir Bushenaki, Stefano De Caro.